Good evening, everybody. Tonight we have the privilege of hearing from Roger Reilly, who is going to be talking about his first-hand experience at the August 12th baseball game at the Field of Dreams in Dyersville. Roger was here probably in the spring, probably April, and we're so glad to have him back to hear about this experience. So please welcome back Roger.
Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay. It is nice to be back. I was here in April, and I talked about United Arab Emirates at that time. And I was fortunate to go on that trip with the Hills Bank Friends Club. I worked for Hills Bank for 36 years and retired at the end of 2019, just before COVID hit. So it was all good from that standpoint of retiring, and certainly not COVID was good, but I'm glad I didn't have to work through that. So tonight we're going to talk about baseball, and when Dave Anson and I talked about setting this up back in, it was probably late September, we picked a date. I said, Dave, you pick the date. He says, how about November 2nd? I said, fine. Never thinking it would be the 6th game of the World Series. Also that it's election night. But hopefully you've all voted, or at least once. You'll line how many times have you voted. So this will be, I'll get through this because I know you want to get on to the election results and the 6th game of the World Series. So Field of Dreams, Dyersville, Iowa. The game was on August 12th this past year. So before we get into the game, I want to talk a little bit about the Field of Dreams. So there's really 2 Field of Dreams sites now. And I'll ask the question, how many have been to the Field of Dreams, the original site? Very good. So if you've been there, you've been very, very close to the baseball field where they played the game. Anyway, it goes back to the Field of Dreams movie in 1989. We talked about that already tonight with a couple people, but it's hard to believe it's been that long ago that the movie came out. And that movie, Field of Dreams, was actually adapted from the movie 8 Men Out, about the Chicago Chicago Black Sox scandal back in 1919. And what happened, if you remember the story, I won't go into it very much in detail, but the White Sox back then were in the World Series, and they were upset with their owner, Charles Comiskey. Certainly back in the day it was called Comiskey Park, but now it's a different name. But that site's moved. But back in 1919, Comiskey didn't pay his players very well. And so some guys got together and went to the players and said, we can pay you more money than Comiskey can if you throw the World Series and don't play as hard as you have all season to get to the World Series. So that was the story behind 8 Men Out. And there's that movie, if you want to watch that one sometime. It's a very, very good movie about the Black Sox back then. So then we move forward to 1989 with the movie about the Field of Dreams. And so the Kevin Costner storyline here, he was an Iowa farmer, Ray Kinsella, and he hears his voice, if you build it, he will come. And so he kept hearing this voice, and he lived on this farm, and he wasn't doing real well as a farmer, and he thought, well, I'm just going to turn this cornfield into a baseball field, and his wife thought he was crazy. He said, what do you mean? I mean, this is our life here. We have to have income, and if you turn it into a baseball field, what's that going to be like? But Ray Kinsella said, no, that's my wish. So anyway, if you saw that movie, it's on DVD, and you can catch that, and maybe they have shown it here. If they haven't, maybe you can ask them to do that. But it was Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones, Burt Lancaster, Ray Liotta, other people too. So that really put Dyersville on the map back then. So It's just a few miles northeast of Dyersville, where the farm was, actually still is, but it's somewhat a farm. So you have to take people there. So back in May of 20, so this is a year and a half ago, we took 2 of our grandchildren to the site over Memorial Day. And you can see the corn was just coming up. They had just planted it. It was a late spring. And as you look in that picture of me in the middle with Macklin Reilly and Harper Reilly, they live in Grand Rapids, Michigan now. In the back there, that's where the field where they played the baseball game is located. So we were on the edge of the old field. And of course we had to take a picture, like the little girl was at the top of the grandstand in the movie. So my wife took the picture, and we had a great time up there, not really thinking too much about the movie at the time. So there's a White House, a beautiful White House, maintained very well, with the sign there. And recently, in the bottom picture, lo and behold, they built a concession, or not a concession stand, but a gift shop. And you can go in there and get T-shirts and whatever you want about the Field of Dreams. So it's just a very nice place, very comfortable, and we'll just tell you a little bit more about it. So the movie Field of Dreams put Dyersville on the map as a destination. So people have now traveled from all over. They have 65,000 visitors annually, and that was before this baseball game was played. So I can imagine what it will be like going forward. But you can go out there and play a game on the old field. People are very good about, well, come on in and let's play, or they play catch or whatever. So in the movie, the Field of Dreams movie, they talked about, Kevin Costner talks about, doesn't say play catch, but have a catch with his dad. Now, evidently the term have a catch is an Eastern terminology. When I played catch with my dad, it was play catch. Let's go out in the backyard, Dad, and play catch. But anyway, they talk about have a catch, but they do have a lot of people come out there. There's no charge to play on the field, and I didn't put it on here, but I'm going to use the term yet. So we'll just see how it goes, and we'll talk about that toward the end. But there's no charge to play in the field. Anybody can just go out and play catch or have a catch. And the baseball field and the cornfield, where you see the kids standing, it was owned by 2 families. And it wasn't very amicable, because one wanted to continue and really build up the site, and the other one said, no, let's just keep it very low key, and we'll keep the cornfield and the outfield. But it certainly is a feel good for the state of Iowa. It just really put us on the map as far as I was concerned. Now we'll talk about the game itself back in August. I don't know how many people did register, but you could register with the Major League Baseball. MLB conducted a ticket raffle for Iowa residents, and they were very strict about this. You had to be an Iowa resident to get into the raffle. And so you could register your name and address, phone number, email address. But the interesting thing was they didn't mention a price for these tickets. And I forget the number of tickets that were available, but they were going to have this raffle. And then after you won the raffle, you had the choice to say, okay, I want to buy the tickets, or no, I'll pass it on to somebody else. Well, it was so exciting that people really didn't care at that time what the price was. At least they registered and hoping that they would get selected. The tickets were difficult to acquire and quite pricey. As they say here, there's a lady up in North Liberty, you may have read about this, that she won 2 tickets and sold them for $850 each. And that was probably an intermediate price. I think the tickets went for $375 to Major League Baseball. So if you won the lottery, there was a price to pay. It was $375 a ticket, and you could get up to 2 tickets, plus a parking pass. Some tickets went for $3,000. So it was the ticket to have in Iowa. So I say here, friends of ours won the Quality Care ticket lottery. Now, Quality Care is the group from Iowa City. Dean Moore used to own it. He sold it, I believe, to Nate Kading. Anyway, they now, they won whatever to get to be the group that put in the field at Dyersville. So the field was put in and manicured by Quality Care. And with that, they got 2 tickets. And I'm sure it was probably difficult with all the people that worked there. They could have had a lottery, but they had a lottery for customers. So they sent out an email and said, if you like, you can register for a lottery for 2 tickets for the game. And I thought about doing it, but I didn't. And friends of ours won the lottery. So I got this, first of all, I got this call from a friend. He said, I won the MLB lottery, but I've got tickets. I'm going to give you the sign-on, and you can go in and see if you can buy the tickets. Well, just about 10 minutes later, I get a call from this couple on the east side of Iowa City, friends of ours, and they said, we have 2 tickets. We won the Quality Care lottery. Would you like the tickets? I said, I like the tickets. I said, the only way I'll take them is if I can pay for them. And they said, we won them. We're not going to sell them to you. And I'll tell you, it was Cindy and Doug Rupert. Doug is an attorney in town, and Cindy runs the basket cases. And I said, why don't you want to go? And they said, well, our son, Brent, is expecting a baby here in about 2 weeks, and we don't want to go where there's a chance of us catching COVID. I said, totally understand. And there was another friend, that big White Sox fan as I am, who was in the running, and they called him first, and he says, nah, I don't want to go. And I said, Mike, what's the deal? He said, he was playing golf, and he had to make this putt. He says, forget it. I don't want to go to the game. I got to make this putt. I said, whatever, that's fine. So anyway, they asked me if I wanted the tickets, and initially I said, I've got a chance to get 2 tickets to the MLB lottery. I think I'm going to go after that. And they said, you don't want these tickets? And I said, well, why don't you pass them on to somebody else? I hung up the phone, and Barb was with me, my wife. I have to be careful, but she said, you dumb. And I said, you know, Barb, you're right. So I redialed Cindy right away, and I said, those tickets still available? She said, yeah, sure they are. I said, I'll take them. And then I said, I'll pay you for them. And she said, no, you're not paying. So got 2 tickets, didn't have to pay, and I thank my wife that I finally went through and got them. So the game was between the Yankees and the White Sox. How many watched the game on TV? Yeah, it was a great event on TV. We taped it. I watched some of it. It was the first Major League game in Iowa. Some people say, well, it's hard to believe, but no, it wasn't, because there's no Major League teams in Iowa. And there was never a chance to have one in Des Moines or Cedar Rapids or anything like that. So it was in Dyersville, Iowa, and the old line, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. Really made everybody feel proud of being an Iowan that night. It was fun that way. The White Sox wore what's called throwback uniforms, the uniforms that were worn back in the 1919 World Series. They wore those. And really, this game was postponed from a year prior because of COVID. Initially, it was supposed to be the White Sox and the Yankees, and then the Yankees, they pulled out or they changed the schedule. Then it was supposed to be the White Sox and the Cardinals, and then COVID finally put an end to it all and said, no, we're not going to do it. So I thought, well, how am I going to get there? So my friends, Marty Myers and I worked at Hills Bank for over 30 years, and his friend and my friend too, Tom Bockenstedt, who works in construction, has a construction firm in Iowa City. They won the lottery, and Tom did, so they were going to go together. And I said, can I have a ride? And they said, sure. So the game's at 6 p.m. I said, what time are you going to leave? And I said, well, we got to leave at least by noon. I said, how far is Dyersville from here, guys? And they said, well, it's about an hour and a half, maybe. So I said, I don't care, let's go. So these two fellas in the blue shirts, Marty Myers, in the white shirt is Tom Bockenstedt, and those are two of the ghost players. And kind of use the term friendly ghost players. So these ghost players are local fellas. Some of them were in the movie back in 1989 and continue to help out on weekends. And they dress in the uniform of the 1919 World Series. And then they're there for pictures. They'll play catch with people. I think, and sometimes they do come out of the corn like they did back in the day. So it was fun to be with Marty and Tom. I say Dyersville area natives. To be truthful here, they're from the NV of Iowa. You know what the NV of Iowa is? It's New Vienna, Iowa. New Vienna, NV of Iowa. And that's 5 miles north of Dyersville. And both these fellas are from New Vienna. So when we got there about 1:30, and you couldn't park until 2 o'clock. The lot didn't open. Well, the lot was an alfalfa field across the road from the old Field of Dreams. And right there, we took a picture of the two fellas in the alfalfa field, and within an hour, that field was full of cars. They just rolled in, kind of like the movie, if you remember, where they turn on the headlights and everybody goes to the field. So you could get into the parking at 2 o'clock, and the gate to get into the grounds didn't open until 3. So we, as true people from Dubuque County, myself included, I'm a native of Dubuque, we had a couple beers before we actually went in. So we had a good time getting ready for the game, which I mentioned before didn't start till 6 o'clock. This is a picture of the fans going in and going to some of the concession area as well as the gift shop. So if you remember the day, it was beautiful. It was hot. It was a great day for baseball. It was very warm, but people really didn't care. And kind of the background on the teams, they both came in the day of the game, which was kind of interesting. The Yankees played down in Kansas City Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so they stayed down there Wednesday and then got in a plane and flew up to Dubuque on Thursday morning, and same with the White Sox. So Major League Baseball really had this figured out so that they weren't coming from LA or coming from some other far away or a home game in New York, whatever it was. So they were close. They were Kansas City and Chicago, White Sox were in Minneapolis. So it was just a short trip that Thursday morning, but really interesting that they didn't come to town until actually the day of the game. And certainly a perfect time of the year to highlight Iowa. The corn crop was just lush. It was just before the drought hit. So this is a view of the Field of Dreams, aerial view, looking at it from the east to the west. And so where the picture was taken from was high above, say, that house that we looked at on the old field. And then the bottom picture, if you can see it, they're watering the infield, and that's down the left field line, and you're looking southeast onto the field. So they did everything exactly like they would do a Major League game. They had batting practice, they watered the infield afterward. It was very nice. So the stadium itself didn't open until 4, so 2 hours before the game. In order to get to the ballpark, you got to walk through 10 foot high of corn. And it just transformed it from the old field into the new field by walking through the corn. And the corn was probably, 60 feet long to get into so you were really in the corn to walk through it. And for those that were adventurous, they did have a maze that you could walk through to get to the field, but we just went straight here. You can see that's me with the white hair, as you might imagine. So there's 36 on the back of my White Sox jersey, and why would I have a White Sox jersey being as old as I am? Well, when I retired from Hills Bank, Hills Bank gave me this jersey with the number 36 on it to represent the number of years that I worked there. So they knew I was a White Sox fan, and it just couldn't have worked any better to be able to go. So that's Tom Bockenstedt in the middle, and I'm next to him walking through the corn. So there were friends and foes there. The friend here was a friend of Marty and Tom's from Dyersville. And so I asked him if I could have my picture taken with him in front of the corn, and he said certainly yes. So the other one, the foe, and it's a foe because he's wearing a Yankee cap, it's Dr. Matt White. Matt is an orthopedic surgeon up in Cedar Rapids and actually lives in Iowa City, right outside or in the outfield of Regina baseball field. So Matt graduated from high school with my son RJ, or our son RJ, who's our oldest, and I saw him there. He's been a Yankee fan since he was a little kid, as is his dad. But anyway, had to have a selfie taken with a Yankee fan. So we have 3 children, and my wife Barb said, why don't you invite one of our kids to go to the game? She said, I don't need to go to the game, although she's a big baseball fan. I said, are you sure, Barb? And she said, oh, the kids wouldn't, one of the children would enjoy it so much. So I'm thinking, how do I determine which child gets to go? You know, you have 2 tickets and 3 kids, and I certainly wanted to go, so we have 3 children and 1 ticket. So I said to our oldest, RJ, who lives up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I said, would you like to go? And earlier in the summer, they came down, he and his son Matt, who was in that picture earlier, they came down and we went to the College World Series in Omaha. So I thought, well, if he got to go to the College World Series, then maybe I can offer it to one of the other children. And he was very good about it. He said, Dad, why don't you invite Patrick? And Patrick's in this picture. Patrick's our youngest. I thought, well, okay. So I called him and he says, oh yeah, I'll go. And then I thought, we have a middle child. Her name's Elizabeth. She lives in Minneapolis. So I called Elizabeth. I said, Elizabeth, have a chance. I got 2 tickets to the Field of Dreams game. And it's, I think that was Wednesday. It's tomorrow night in Dyersville. And would you like to go? I've talked to Patrick about it. And she said, Dad, is this a courtesy call? I said, yes, Elizabeth, it is a courtesy call. If you want to go, you and Patrick can go. But Patrick said he wanted to go. So Patrick's an assistant baseball coach at Winona State University in Winona, Minnesota. So baseball is right up his alley. So he traveled, drove down from Winona. Took him about 3 hours, but he got there. And all tickets for this were virtual, meaning they were on your phone. So Major League Baseball sent them off that way. So they were on the phone. You had to get your phone out and get them scanned. You do it over at the University of Iowa, now with football tickets, even basketball tickets. But you're out in the middle of nowhere. You're in Dyersville, Iowa, in the country. So you're hoping that internet works, or that your phone works, for that matter. But it worked like clockwork. It was very easy, no problems whatsoever. So at the game, before the game, Kevin Costner came out of the cornfield, and they showed that on TV. They had drones flying around, and cameramen on the field. It was quite the show, actually. And he walked around and didn't say anything at first. He just walked out of the corn, had a baseball in his hand, looked around, and then he eventually spoke. But before he spoke, the players then started to come out. And that's when it really made it feel real. You really got the tingles when you saw the White Sox come out first and then the Yankees. And they didn't run out. They walked slowly, just like in the movie. And you thought, this is for real. This is good stuff. So they walked out from right field onto the infield, and they lined up here, the Yankees between first and second base, and the White Sox between second and third. And Costner did give a speech about the history of the movie, baseball in general, the fact that he loves Iowa, likes to come back every now and then. So then they had the Star Spangled Banner, and then they had a flyover. So it was pretty neat from that perspective. And then the other picture, you can't see it very well, but Lance Lynn was the pitcher for the White Sox, starting pitcher, and he's warming up. So they're photographing him before he throws the first pitch. Yeah, there we go. So there's the Yankees on the first base line for first to second, White Sox. And then they had the flyover, pregame festivities with the flyover, and Marty and Tom had very good seats. They looked right down the first base line, and they were in about row 20. And that was the Major League Baseball raffle that Tom won. So he had really good seats. We were way out in left field, but we say way out in left field. It seats 8,000 people, so just a couple looks here. The picture here of three things on the picture on the left. One is the scoreboard. That's an old-fashioned scoreboard like Wrigley Field, like Fenway Park, where they put the scores up by hand. So when they scored, or each inning, they would put the number up by hand. The infield, outfield was beautiful, mowed well, perfect green, not a weed in the field at all. And then in the background, you can see the cornfield. And I kid a little bit about this, but the farmers there planted corn. You didn't see any soybeans. It was all corn, certainly to get it across that it was Iowa and the players coming out of the corn. And then just a picture of if you build it, and a lot of corn. So they also had a big video board. So the other scoreboard I showed you was in right center. The video board was in left center, and it was right in the middle of the cornfield. But it was pretty good size. And so we took a picture of Kevin as he's looking around just before the game started. And then the other picture is behind home plate, just showing the different groups of people, Yankee uniforms, White Sox uniforms. I think that one says Musial, so that's an old Cardinal uniform of Stan Musial, so a little bit of everything. The starting lineups were announced by Joe Buck, and probably right about now, Joe Buck's getting the starting lineup for the Braves-Astros game. But for the White Sox-Yankee game, it was a legitimate game. As you can see, the players there, Aaron Judge played right field, and Giancarlo Stanton was the DH, and Heaney was the pitcher. For the Yankees and then the White Sox, I'm a Yankee fan, so all these guys, they're good. They just ran out of pitching in the playoffs, but Tim Anderson, Carlos Hernandez, Jose Abreu, Eloy Jimenez, Yohan Moncada, can't remember Vaughn's first name, Luis Robert, Engel, and Anthony Savalas was the catcher, and Lance Lynn was the pitcher. So that was the lineup. And this was the line score. And you really couldn't ask for a better situation. As far as number of runs, there's 17 runs, 16 hits, scoring early. Sox went up after 4 innings. They were up 7-3. So I'm having a good time. I had another beer, thinking the Sox are going to win here, looking good. Then it was 7-4. Then in the 9th inning, the Yankees got the bats going, and they went ahead 8-7. I thought, oh, we can't have this. So we'll talk a little bit about the bottom of the 9th here in just a minute. They had concession stands, a good crowd. The picture on the top right, they had these kind of umbrellas over the concession stands. Very good food. easy in, easy out. It wasn't crowded at all. People were very polite. And then there was a cardboard cutout on the way out of Tim Anderson. And Tim Anderson was the hero of the game, so we had to have a picture with Tim. And the video board, as we talked about, there's a QR code on the video board, if you can see that. So if you wanted to, you could scan that with your phone and get a copy of the ticket. As I mentioned, the tickets were virtual, but you could get a paper ticket, and some people ordered that for memento purposes, and then the old-fashioned scoreboard in right field that we talked about. So I have a few takeaways from the game. Tony Larussa, Tony's been around a long time. Tony, I think, played for the Iowa Oaks back in the day, and then he's been managing for some time. And he was out of baseball for a while, and the Sox hired him back. But he did not attend the game because actually a death in the family. His brother-in-law passed away, and he was down in Florida, so he wasn't even at the game. They had the largest viewership of a Major League Baseball game in, 16 years, with 6 million viewers. So you were one of 6 million that night. And they had a storm the night before in Dyersville, so they had to stake the corn to keep it straight. And they said they worked hard that, not just in the morning of the game, but that night after the storm went through, they went out there and with lights and put up stakes so that the corn looked straight. So, all made for TV. There were 8 home runs in the game, and the dimensions of the park were legitimate. They were not a small field. So, it was 405, I think, to center field, and probably 330, 340 down the line, 375 to right and left center. But each team hit 4 home runs, so I don't know if the warm night summer air in Dyersville made it easier to hit home runs. They did hit 6 in the right field, which is a little strange. Normally left-handed hitters hit to left field, but anyway, 6 went into right field. And there's something about a home run going into the corn. To see a home run in the park, it's great, and people go after it and try to get a souvenir. But when it lands in the corn, it was fun. It was just neat to see. Giancarlo Stanton, the DH, the designated hitter for the Yankees, stuffed corn in his pants to take home as a souvenir. I don't think he had ever seen corn before, especially like that. Because he and another guy went out there and pulled the ear off and tried to eat it. And they spit it out, and they said, "This isn't corn." Field corn, sweet corn, you know how that works. So that was kind of fun. It was set up for 8,000 people. They had attendance of 7,832, so really there weren't too many empty seats. And it was interesting, the home plate umpire was Pat Hoberg from Urbandale, and so they just didn't call Pat and say, "You're going to be the umpire." He's a major league umpire, and they assigned the game to him to be a home plate umpire. And he did an okay job. He's a good umpire, but he had a very tight strike zone. And if you remember the game, Michael Kopech was a reliever for the White Sox, and he could have been thrown out for how he argued balls and strikes with Hoberg. But I think because it was the big game, they didn't throw him out. But he gave Hoberg a bit of his mind. We talked about quality care in charge of turf management. They did a wonderful job. Timmy Anderson did hit a home run to walk it off, as they say. And actually, in the bottom of the ninth, the number 8 hitter was up for the White Sox. And they put in a pinch hitter. And the pinch hitter flew out to left field. And if anybody cares, I did keep score. So I like to always keep score of the game. So let's just see here. So, Mendick was the pinch hitter. Actually, he grounded out to first. And then the number 9 hitter was up, Savalas. And Savalas isn't known as a hitter, but he did hit a home run earlier in the night, in the fourth inning, he hit a home run, but he also had struck out twice. And so it's now 1 out, and he goes, the count goes to no balls and 2 strikes. And I think, oh man, this isn't going to work, guys. So he then hits one down the third base line, and the third baseman reaches over the line to get the ball, and it's wherever the ball is, not where the fielder is. So the umpire said foul ball. So, because he would have been thrown out. In fact, he did throw it. He would have been out. So somehow he works the pitcher for a walk. So with an 0-2 count, he gets four balls and ends up on first base. So then Timmy Anderson comes up. We'll talk about that in a minute. Top 10 takeaways. So Anderson hits the home run. We'll see that in a minute. So next year, August 11, 2022, the Cubbies are going to play the Cincinnati Reds. Certainly I understand why the Cubs would play. Does anybody know why the Reds are playing?
They're the oldest team or something.
They're the oldest team in baseball. That is true. And I don't know that that's the reason. My reason is a little different. Because you always, back in the day, Cincinnati would always open the season. They always opened the season in Cincinnati because of that fact. But the other half of the 1919 World Series was the Cincinnati Reds versus the Black Sox. So they're bringing the Cincinnati Reds back to be a part because they played in the 1919 World Series. So this is the site from where we sat. This is the bottom of the ninth, and Savalas is on first base. Timmy Anderson is up. And did Lindsay leave? Lindsay, I need your help, I think. So there's some video with this one. And I don't know which key to touch. Maybe I just hit one of these. See it going into right field. So I thank Patrick for that. He was able, I don't know why he didn't video much, but he videoed that first pitch to Anderson that he hit out of the park. And it was wonderful. So this is Patrick, and he put together a little bit of a video here. So anyway, that was the end of the game, and Sox won, and we were happy, and I got in the car, and Patrick and I drove up to Winona, Minnesota, so he could recruit the next day, and he kept me awake, and I kept him awake. So that was the deal on the game, and since then, the field has sold. Denise Stillman had bought the site back in 2012, and she just wanted to host a Major League Baseball game there. And sorry to say that Denise passed away here just 3 years ago, almost to the date, at the age of 46. So her estate was part of the ownership that sold it just recently to Frank Thomas. Frank Thomas is a former Chicago White Sox first baseman. And the Big Hurt is his nickname. And if you ever watch White Sox baseball, he's on the post game with Ozzie Guillen. And I can't think of the other guy's name. But anyway, Frank Thomas now owns it, along with this Dan Evans from the Dodgers. And so it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what the price they paid, but it had to be close to $10 million, I suppose. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the field and the area. Now, if you've ever been up to Marion, they have some sites up there, baseball fields. And so it's an income producer up there. They have teams come in from all over. So I would think teams would love to go to Dyersville to say they played near or on the Field of Dreams, but it's going to be interesting to see if it stays free on the old field or how they're going to do it. But anyway, and the 8,000-seat ballpark was constructed twice back in 2020 and 2021. They said each time it cost them $6 million. I'm not sure that that's true, but it seems awfully expensive just to put the field in. And then building the Field of Dreams, I put this one in here, the backstory. On November 9th, coming up here a week from tonight, live from the movie site, Clark University in Dubuque, Sue Reilly, and Sue was part of the original movie. She's the lady that found the site for the Field of Dreams. So she's going to talk about that and other things about the Field of Dreams with this young man, Tucker LaBelle, who was a student at Clark and who did have a job with the White Sox. And so he's going to tell how they got the teams there and how all that worked. So if you want to go out on their website, clark.edu, you can read more about it. I registered tonight, so we're going to listen to it. Actually, it's probably a Zoom presentation next Tuesday night, so it lives on. So that's really the extent of my comments here. I just want to end it with, we want to get out of here now, so it's, first pitch was at 7:10 or something like that. Braves play the Astros, game 6. Braves lead 3-2.
Okay.
Game 6 is tonight, game 7, if necessary, tomorrow night. It's at Minute Maid Field in Houston. I don't know who you're betting on, if it'll be the Braves because they're ahead, or the Astros because they have the home field advantage. And I put the comment in here, how long will it take? There was an article in the Wall Street Journal here recently about the length of baseball games. And they've been very critical of the fact that baseball games last too long. And if you're not a true fan, and even if you're a true fan, it's tough to sit there for 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 4 hours. So game 1 in the World Series lasted 4 hours and 6 minutes. Game 4 lasted 3 hours and 45 minutes. And back to game 3 lasted 3 hours and 24 minutes. And that was in a game where the Braves pitcher had a no-hitter through 5 innings, and they took him out. And because the Braves were ahead, there was no bottom of the 9th, so they played 8.5 innings, and it still took 3 hours and 24 minutes. But anyway, as I always say, let's play ball. So, any questions? Thank you. Yes, sir.
Did you have any notion of where the players in the game dressed and showered afterwards? They go to Dubuque or get on the bus or what?
They actually had a dressing room for both teams underneath the stands. And so they hung around actually after the game. We didn't stay because we had been there so long previously, and I knew her had 3 hours going up to Winona, but Marty and Tom stuck around, and the players stuck around and signed autographs, and they were very good about it. Yes, but then yes, they had to get back. I don't know. I think they all stayed in Dubuque that night and then flew out the next day. Yeah. Gordon.
It was a perfect game, weather-wise.
It was.
It's going to be hard to top that game.
You know, it was probably 80-some degrees at 6 o'clock that night, but people didn't seem to care. I mean, you dress in a t-shirt and shorts, and it wasn't real while it was crowded, you didn't feel like you were being pushed together by any means. And the concession stands were right down the steps, so it was close. Well, thank you. Yes?
What about insects at the game?
I don't know if they sprayed or what they did, but there were none. There were none. Because you're pretty much in the middle of a cornfield. In fact, you walk through the cornfield, but there were nothing like that at all. And the lighting was very good going out at night. And somebody said, well, the traffic had to be terrible because everybody left pretty much at the same time. But I think we were maybe in that alfalfa field for 20 minutes, and then you finally got in line, and we were going out on Lansing Road before we knew it, so nothing to it. So if you can get there next year, I suggest, if nothing else, try to get in the lottery, maybe you can sell the tickets.
You gonna try to go this year, next year?
That's a good question, Gordon. I don't know that I can top what we saw this last summer. It would be fun just to say, yes, I've been there for 2 years, but I don't know. It's like going to the, what was the Citrus Bowl when Iowa won in the last second. Holloway caught the touchdown pass. You just don't want to go to another bowl game because you can't top that. But, yeah. Anything else? Were you? Yeah, that was fun. It was fun, yes. Well, thanks for being good audience tonight. And, we got to watch the end of the World Series and see who was elected to the school board. So, thank you.
Hi, Charlie.